Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I rise to firstly support the statement delivered by the Minister for Bougainville Affairs, and I want to commend him as Minister for his steadfast leadership in the time he's been Minister. I want to also acknowledge the member for Abao, who served earlier in my tenureship as Prime Minister. Under his watch, the referendum process was supervised. I do acknowledge his leadership and those who've served in this important portfolio before him, one of which notable is the late, the Honourable William Samp, the member for Guelala, then in his earlier role as Minister presiding over Bougainville matters. But a thank you to our national leaders would be in vain without thanking the Bougainville leaders. I want to thank all Bougainville leaders who have been part of the peace process since August 30th, 2001 up till at present. I recognize the work of the late Joseph Kabui as president then, as a leader then, and the first interim president, later president, and the leadership, his leadership cohort of Bougainville and PNG, for them to sit on the table of peace. And they construct what is historic, Bougainville Peace Agreement that has binded us to this day as we come to utilize provisions of the Parliament, standing orders using a session order to usher in the result of Bougainville referendum to this Honourable House. Mr. Speaker, all who have contributed to the peace process thus far needs to be acknowledged. The issue before us, whilst is sensitive and consequential to our nation's future, it is something that we cannot ignore. The time is of essence. Time that was secured under the peace agreement pushed us to referendum at 2019, and hence we are running this process, Mr. Speaker. And so whilst it's sensitive, it touches our national identity, it touches our constitutional order, it affects the lives of our shared people, especially, more importantly, the children who will come after us or in our midst. I acknowledge the little children, the students who are amidst us at the public gallery. This is a historic moment and a huge moment. Both the Minister for Bougainville and also the regional member of Bougainville and Minister was a strong advocate for Bougainville independence. I just want to place on record, and rightfully so, is entitled to advocate for Bougainville's political independence that has been in voice since day one, whether in the Pango caucus, or in government caucus, or in cabinet, or even on the floor of parliament. They have spoken eloquently. This issue, Mr. Speaker, predates 1975, September 16, and correctly so predates 1988, predates 2001. The matter on Bougainville independence has been inherently deep in Bougainville for many, many years. It surfaced to a big point in 1988 that culminated in the 2001 peace agreement that is shepherding us to these states. The referendum held in Bougainville in 2019 was not optional. It was constitutionally mandated under the Bougainville Peace Agreement, especially Part 14, Section 338 of the Constitution. It was conducted with the highest standards, with international observers assessing it to have been free, fair, and I want to acknowledge the United Nations' role in the conduct of the observation, supervision, and eventually referendum in 2019. They have been with us every step of the way since 2001, and I do acknowledge their hand. But in 2019, when the referendum was held, United Nations was part of the process and supervised the process. And so I want to inform this House the people of Bougainville participated peacefully and excuse me, an overwhelming turnout, and they expressed their views with clarity and dignity. Today we know the result stands 97.7% in the positive affirmation of the view that they must be politically independent. They choose political independence over maintenance of autonomy as it is at present. Mr. Speaker, this is the magnitude of task faced before us in this Parliament. My government over the last 7 years have given substantial intervention funds and substantial recurrent funds to Bougainville, but just like we've given all the other provinces. But this is not about funds and development, but it's about political aspirations that they've voted about. This Parliament is now faced with this choice of allowing them to be independent, or we hold them back and work in an arrangement that is within the construct of existing Part 14 of the Constitution, or something better. Mr. Speaker, we all cannot run away from this. We must deal with this issue. For decades, it has been an issue on our table. At 1988, when the power pylons first fell in Bougainville, our country was but only 14 years old as a sovereign nation. At 2001, when the peace agreement was signed, our country was but only 25 years old as a nation. And the peace agreement was stitched and constructed. Today, 25 years on since the peace agreement was signed, we are now in the process of using session orders to usher in the result of the vote that was held in 2019. Mr. Speaker, but all hope is not lost, as I spoke in my statement in response to the chairman of our bipartisan committee on Bougainville, the Honorable Dr. Alan Marape, who presented his report, that it is either going to be a yes vote in the majority or no vote in the majority. Whatever way this Parliament takes a vote, it is not a dead end in as far as our work and walk with Bougainville is concerned. Our work as two people will always be there going forward into the future, or one people in as far as Melanesia family is concerned. Our work for reconstruction of not just Bougainville, but the reconstruction or construction of our country will still go on. At 1975, Mr. Speaker, our budget, even at the full throttle of Panguna mine, let me place on record, our budget was only about 300 million kina. Not enough to meet the need of the 462,840 square kilometers of a country we call our home today, Papua New Guinea. Then at 1975, that land mass was lived by around 3 million people. Today, that same land mass is lived by almost 11 million people. Needs of our country remain big. At 1988, when the power pylon fell and the police were deployed in the first instance, the economy was still not big enough to handle all our needs. I could understand the rationale of Bougainvilleans when they fight for greater take from their resources. That is the same fight this government constructed in 2019. We fight in the floor of Parliament to take back more resources for our country through the legislative processes. Bougainville are front runners and pace setters, and for that I say thank you. They were fighting to take back more from the resources, but through the actual use of guns and the fight that took place since 1988. Mr. Speaker, history has been written. Past we cannot relive, but future we must construct. And at this juncture, I want to thank the 7 Prime Ministers of our country who have served before me. In 1988, it was Sir Rabin Amalio. In 1992, it was the Right Honorable Pius Wingti. In 1995, it was the Right Honorable late Sir Julius. In 1997, it was the late Sir Bill Skate. In 1999, it was the late Sir Mekere Morota. They all tried their best. They all gave their best out. Just like me today, when there is a civil disorder in Enga province, or Hela province, or Southern Highlands, to protect the resources of our people there, the innocent, we do deploy police. The police is handicapped, we deploy military to assist in the process. Those prime ministers in those times saved their moment. If I was there, then I would have possibly operated the same manner because budget was limited, small at the time. And I take my hats off to them. Most of them have perished, and I'm laying from their work. I give my commendations to them. I want to pay special mention to late Sir Bill Skate, perhaps the first to have set foot in Bougainville at the peak of the crisis. He was there, started the process of peace. I thank Sir Mekere Morota, who then sat on the table of peace. I invoke the blessing of Matthew 5 verse 8 or 9 that says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." To late President Kabui, to late Peter Siamaleli Sr., to late Francis Ona, and many who have passed, I say thank you to them too. They sat on the table of peace in 2001. To my brother, the current President Ismail Toroma, was an important signatory to that peace agreement. To my brother, Vice President Massad, who's still here, I say thank you to you. There are many. Some have gone on PNG side, the national side, and some have gone on the Bougainville side. But for those of us who remain here today, it is now our duty to pick up the issue, give proper context to it, understand the magnitude of the issue, think from Bougainville side and PNG side together, and we process. Since 2002 up to 2011, I thank the Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, who played his role, including I was his Minister for Education in 2009. The first function to be transferred to Bougainville was Education Ministry under my watch. First function. Section 290, if I'm not wrong, has all the powers, Mr. Speaker. There are over 59 powers defined in Section 290 of the Bougainville, I beg your pardon, of the Constitution. All the functions are there to be transferred. And I want to tell the Bougainville people, if not all function has been transferred to date as yet, it takes two sides of the negotiation table. Bougainville government, by constitutional provision, I cannot quote the provision right now out of my head, but there's a provision in the Constitution that says 12-month notice the Bougainville government gives the national government and the drawdown is made. Today, under our watch in this government, I thank Deputy Prime Minister Lenz. The total state land in Bougainville is now not owned by the national government, but by the Bougainville government. Total state land transferred back. In the exercise of 290, fisheries powers have been given back. In fact, we're going one step to both the artisan fishery as well as the deep fishing licenses. We're working to make sure they have their fishing space. 100% of Panguna has been given back to them. All resources has been passed back to them. Mr. Speaker, we only hold back. Now, when I picked up the referendum result in Arawa in 2019, I said every power comes back to you. Those powers in 290, those powers in 2892, we can look into the national powers. The only thing we will retain, subject to the process running and subject to the parliament deciding, the only thing we will retain is foreign affairs, defense, currency, and Supreme Court. Others and any and every power to operate an economy, a government, and a community is already encapsulated in 290 and more from 289. This government stands ready to give them as we speak, as well as subject to the process that will unveil after the votes has taken place. Mr. Speaker, to Bougainvilleans and Papua New Guineans, we do not need to fear this one. And I want to credit the architects of the 2001 peace agreement for giving a beautiful peace agreement to us and embedded in the Constitution. I want to say at this juncture, Mr. Speaker, you may talk big, but thank you to much, Lord Bougainville leaders. Maski only lose him life. Nah, I want to put on one them all, but 2001 only give him respect to national parliament. Because talk blong all or give him respect to national parliament, and we stop inside the bell belong section 342, subsection 1 and subsection 2. Especially subsection 2 process, you may run him now. Subsection 2 process, and we talk national parliament by making decision. National parliament by making decision. That law has stood the last 25 years, and national parliament must make decision. But as national parliament making decision, like on this parliament, offer him advice to Minister Manasseh, offer him advice to Yumi Olgada, offer him advice long Bougainville leadership too. You may know clear, one time by Yumi vote, me propose him 38th of August 2026, Constitution one time Melanesian Framework Agreement, thinking blow two block government or say you must hurry blow this block. Me propose him August 30, but subject we will hold, the President and myself will agree to an important meeting, joint meeting between both sides in July in Buka, and we'll agree on a date as to when the result will come. That agreement is not just a President and a Prime Minister conversation or Minister Massad and Minister Makiba conversation. Mr. Speaker, ME stop long spirit long 342 subsection 1. 342 subsection 1, ME talk. Both sides must consult after a referendum. And consult after a referendum we did, Mr. Speaker. Tamipla Golong, first after result finish, Mipla Golong, first meeting after referendum long Kokopo. Me talk, now me make him talk, me talk, lo Kokopo, me talk. As high as Mount William is, the referendum result will stand like that. Mr. Speaker, me mini one lo display. And me mini Muslim, like lo people, you me kiss him finish but send up yet. However, Parliament walk him display result, as you may bring him a vote he come inside. None up one play rouse him like 97.7 and send up stuff. We just have to acknowledge this forever. That at one time they voted, and they voted for not autonomy, but full political independence. That question is explicit. That question is explicitly given to us in Constitution that we must ask for full political independence. Section 338 says this. So long, Kokopo Miblatok, result was stop yet. I made a commitment the result will be there. And to Bougainville, I give him assurance Just like earlier when opposition were talking about something, I gave my assurance. James Marape, don't let my words come back empty. Bougainville, I've visited you more times than any other prime minister. It's on record. My heart is for you, but my mind will tell me what to do. This is an emotional matter, but we must make rational choices collectively going forward. This parliament, and I want to say thank you to Bougainvilleans. Under the post-referendum talk now walk, where Yemi Stadin, President Torama has never wavered. The Honorable Ismail Massad has never wavered. The entire Bougainville team has never wavered. Minister Peter Siamalali, Sister Honorable Francisca Samaso, the Honorable Jimmy Mirintero, the Honorable Timothy Masio has never wavered. For them, it's independence or not independence. And we can understand this. I want to say to the people, your leaders have never failed you. But a process to the children of Bougainville and our country, our process is running. Our country is not a country without constitution. Constitution have yet let me talk through the peace process that National Parliament will decide. And this National Parliament will work. I want to thank Bougainvilleans. You understood me when I said, as high as Mount William, and that word still stands. The result will stand forever. Whatever happens during the vote, it will still continue. If it is no, we will continue. If it is yes, we will continue. That's what I said last week. You don't need to fear, and the rest of our country don't need to fear as we assess and weigh the options before us. Bougainville leaders, I say thank you. When we went to Wabek for the second post-referendum consultation, the leaders came into Wabek and I asked, again in my statement, I said, you think from my perspective as I think from your perspective. Buktambo talk, do unto others what you would want them to do to you, and we were in that mindset. I think from your independent aspirations, but you think from my defense of national security aspirations. Our country is not one language, one talk place against one language, one talk place. No, God. 1975, the most diverse nation on the face of planet Earth was fused into one nation we call Papua New Guinea today. And we have been running behind the flag despite the hardships, problems, amidst our few joys in between. One people, one nation, one country, one constitution. It can come today. Long Wabek me ask him, Yupla, think from our perspective as we think from your perspective. I want to say thank you. In the era corner after Wabek meeting, and I tell you, Mr. Speaker, why make this Adlo meeting along Wabek? And I thank Governor Iparas for being a wonderful host. Governor Iparas, thank you. Wabek, capital of Enga province, in case you may not clear. Enga province and Wanpla province, it got 600,000 people speaking one language. Bougainville, you got more than 20 languages. Enga province, Wanpla language. Enga province, you got Wanpla gold mine too. Today this gold mine will go for the next 50 years from the studies coming out. Now when I ask you to think from my perspective, Mr. Speaker, what if sometimes down the line, God forbid, but someone with a lot of guns fights the police and fights the army, mi salim go. Tak mi power lo gun to, mi power lo gold to. Mi la kisi more. Now fight, now talk also, all right. You like in peace, we must get referendum. 600,000 people from one ancestor speaking one language. Don't think just, Mr. Speaker, don't think just because I'm stop inside long inland, give affordability, long all thinking also. Mr. Speaker, Rwanda and one black country, stop inside long inland Africa. Size floor Rwanda and 26,000 square kilometers. Size Blenga province and 11,000 square kilometers. A little half. But suppose me Troma Hela province go anta boligar gold, I guess. And Napla 10,000 go anta almost 26,000. So when I ask Bougainville, my brothers and sisters in Bougainville, my children in Bougainville, my leaders in Bougainville, the challenge I have is the fragility of this country. When you asked for independent provincial government in 1976, you got it, rest became provincial government. Time you talk autonomy, you special case, you mean basket me, but other provinces are too talking about autonomy. So when I ask, think from my perspective, I think from you. And the other day I gave commitment, we will not send soldiers and defense police into Bougainville. We work to empower you. As we ring fence you out and we deal with other parts of the country. As our nation faces, come out of our 50th anniversary to go into our 51st, the rest of our country will define autonomy in total clarity with no push beyond autonomy to independence as we deal with Bougainville as a special case waiting and to go forward. So I want to say thank you to Bougainville leadership. They saw clarity what we need to do for the rest of the country. I take my hat out to President Toroma and Mossad. We came down to Era Kone meeting in Port Moresby, and we clearly established, and at the Era Kone meeting, the Bougainville leadership said, yes, we now recognize that National Parliament is the supreme law-making body of the land. And so the rest of the country, I want to say, and I speak for Bougainville, even in the pain of more than 20,000 people losing lives, even in the face of 97.7% voting for independence, the Bougainville leadership under President Ismail Toroma and Vice President Massa today, at the time AG, they gave respect to the National Parliament. What more can you ask of them? Continuously. What more can you ask of them? Continuously. And so I want us to give this conversation a fair go. Fair go. As we process this, today will not be a moment where all of us speak. The minister will introduce the session order, will usher in the result to the parliament. We place it here. And I want each of you, I've asked all of you before, to consult your provincial assemblies, to consult your districts, and for us to have a fair go in this matter. And there was only issue on the voting threshold. I want to conclude my statement in support by saying there was a strong position from Bougainville that emerged that they voted for referendum, so Parliament will just affirm the result. But national government hold our ground, said Section 342, subsection 2, says Parliament will make decision. Parliament's decision is always by a way of vote. And this is a constitutional matter, and constitutional numbers will take precedent. I take my head again off to the Bougainville leaders. They, through the Melanesian agreement process, through the dispute resolution process that we invoke, or mediation, and said Jerry Matapora facilitated the second Bana meeting. In the second Bana meeting, it was agreed that National Parliament must process it, and two-thirds majority, absolute majority, in the affirmative must decide. Again, I take my hats off to Bougainville leaders. What more can we ask of them? And so I want to ask all of us, as we come to the next phase, we have to deal with this issue. There's no running away from it. Each of us must stand up. When I accept the referendum result in Arawa, to the Bougainvilleans, I made a statement that you always hold to me when I come back. I said I'm taking it in my bag as member for Tari. As a speaker, one person here, I have two roles, as Prime Minister and as member for Tari. My vote is one to Bougainville. When I take my vote, it'll be a one vote. To break the country, James Marape don't have any locus standi. Simply put, meaning it's a legal word. I don't have standing. Majority agrees, the country will be broken. Majority disagrees, to my brothers and sisters in Bougainville. Pangu Party has a way out of this. We have a convention coming up a couple of days from today. I will put the Pangu Party policy on Bougainville to the table. If a yes vote, this is the way we'll process it. No, if majority says no, this is the way we'll process it. Eventually giving respect to 97.7% view on self-determination. I want to ask you, Bougainvilleans, as I conclude my speech, look at what powers you have done already. Look at what work you've done already. Takes two sides of the coin. If I am to bet you I want to bet you to be successful and not for you to fail. With these words, I ask all members of Parliament, let's shepherd this process through. You'll come back, all party leaders, consider this and make your statement. There's no hiding from the scrutiny. Each of us must decide on what is good for Bougainville and our collective future. Thank you, Thomas.